We start in the United States, where US President Donald Trump has announced that he will posthumously award the highest US civilian honor to right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, who was shot at an event in Utah Valley University. Trump made the remarks during a ceremony at the Pentagon marking the September the 11th, 2001 attacks. This comes after federal and state officials said that they are making active progress in the investigation. At a joint press conference, the FBI and Utah DPS revealed that a high-powered rifle believed to be the murder weapon has been recovered and is now being analyzed at an FBI lab. Officials also confirmed they have video and images of the suspect, and they described them as a college-aged male who blended in well on campus. Authorities also say that the shooter moved across a rooftop to a vantage point, fired, and then fled into a nearby neighborhood. They're now analyzing footprints and other imprints from the scene. The FBI says the broader community is not at risk, but is urging the public to come forward with any tips. The Utah DPS vowed they will catch this individual. Let's listen in to what the US president had to say earlier.
Before we begin, let me express the horror and grief so many Americans at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his.
We are now joined by Scott Faulkner. Scott, thank you for joining us on the program. Let's start with the investigation. The FBI says that they have recovered a rifle and are now tracking the gunman's movements, yet no identification has been made. What does this tell us about the pace and the direction about the investigation?
This is standard FBI procedure. I mean, one of the key things is going to be recovering the bullet. You know, the bullet passed directly through Charlie Kirk, and so it probably is buried in the ground somewhere on the actual murder site. So you're going to want to marry up that bullet to this gun to see whether it is in fact the gun or if it's a decoy gun. And so that's going to be the first thing. The other is that thankfully, there's lots of security cameras on all university campuses in America now, and to be able to actually look at how this assassin moved to his shooting post and fled afterward. So all these pieces are going to be analyzed and over again. I mean, the FBI is probably second only to Interpol and Scotland Yard, probably the finest forensic and criminal investigation unit in the world. So they're going to be very thorough on this and be able to hopefully find this individual and bring him to justice.
Now, Scott, authorities have described the suspect as college-aged. Now, if we look at previous acts of political violence in the United States, if we can remember Donald Trump's assassination attempt nearly a year ago now, was perpetrated by a very young man. Also, you can look at Luigi Mangione, who, of course, was the murderer or the alleged murderer of the United Healthcare CEO. And now we can look at this perpetrator, who is also said to be a very young person. Does this point to a new troubling dimension of political violence in the United States?
Well, the key here is that our dialogue in America has collapsed, and that's one of the great tragedies of many relating to Charlie Kirk's assassination is he was an individual who wasn't just a partisan leader. He was actually on campuses, and he initially started setting up tables just saying, "Change my mind." He actually wanted to engage people across the political spectrum in civil dialogue, and so it's a tragedy that this civil dialogue is basically collapsing in the United States at all levels. And so how much of that affects bringing young people not into civil dialogue but into civil chaos is really very troubling.
Yes, Scott, do stay with us. We have some further updates for our audience. Meanwhile, a spokesperson of the European Commission has offered the EU's sincere sympathies to Charlie Kirk's family. Let's listen in.
The European Union condemns all forms of violence, and we offer our sincere sympathies to the families of the victims of this tragic incident, and we hope that the perpetrators are brought to justice.
The incident has, of course, drawn attention to Utah's gun laws, which are reportedly among the most permissive in the country, allowing firearm purchases and possession in most cases without a permit. In May, Utah lawmakers updated state law to allow the open carry of weapons with a permit on college campuses. According to reports, the University of Utah relaxed its policy on firearms accordingly, while Utah Valley University, where Charlie Kirk was shot, was slightly more restrictive and had policies which only allowed concealed carry with a permit. Moreover, this incident highlights a broader and growing threat to public figures across the US, from President Trump, who faced 2 assassination attempts last year, to lawmakers, judges, and election officials. Violence and threats have surged. The US Capitol Police reported nearly 9,500 threats against members of Congress and related personnel last year, up from around 8,000 a year before. In 2017, this number was less than 4,000. Scott, we've just heard some figures there about political violence increasing in the United States, and we've also heard some facts about the Utah gun laws. Do you think that this incident, given the high-profile nature of it, will see some legislature changing things around when it comes to Utah's gun laws, and possibly at a federal level as well?
Well, first of all, this was a formally organized assassination, so no gun law would have stopped a well-organized, committed, possibly funded assassination of a high-profile political figure. Secondly, I'm sure there will be a lot of rhetoric about changing gun laws, but we have to remember, we're still reeling from that horrible knife attack at that Charlotte tram of that young lady. And so that was a knife. And earlier this year and last year, people were being pushed in front of subway trains in New York City. So it's not about the weapon, it's about the individual. And so whether it's an individual who is psychotic and therefore just striking out at random, like it seems to have been the Charlotte attack and the subway pushing, or possibly a paid assassin in the case of Charlie Kirk. So the gun is irrelevant, even though the rhetoric is going to be focused on it.
Okay, Scott Faulkner, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Pleasure to get your insight. We now move on, but stay in the